Are you struggling to set up your Google Speech API credentials? You're not alone. Many developers face this challenge, especially when transitioning from older versions. Today, we will guide you through the process of specifying authentication keys using the Google Speech API Java library. I completely understand how frustrating it can be when you're trying to get your project off the ground, only to hit a wall with authentication issues. It can feel like you're stuck in quicksand, right? But don't worry, we're here to help you navigate through this. Here's the specific question we're addressing today. A user recently asked, how can I specify the authentication keys using the Google Speech API Java library? They mentioned that in the older beta version, they could easily specify a credentials file, but now they can't find that option. Sound familiar? Let's dive into the solution. So what's going on here? The Google Speech API has evolved, and with that evolution, some changes have been made to how authentication is handled. Understanding these changes is crucial for successfully implementing the API in your projects. And stick around. At the end of this video, I'll share a pro tip that can save you time and headaches when working with Google APIs. To specify the authentication keys for the Google Speech API using the Java library, the user should first ensure they have the Google Cloud SDK installed. This is essential for managing credentials. Next, the user needs to create a service account in the Google Cloud Console. This account will provide the necessary credentials for accessing the Speech API. After creating the service account, the user should download the JSON key file. This file contains the authentication information needed for the Speech API. Now, the user can specify the path to the JSON key file in their Java application. This is done by setting an environment variable or directly in the code. Finally, the user can create an instance of the Speech Client class in their Java application. This will allow them to make requests to the Google Speech API using the specified credentials. Fun fact: did you know that the first speech recognition systems were developed in the 1950s? They could only recognize digits. Look how far we've come since then. Now let's look at the answers provided by other users. An alternative approach shared by another user involves using a service account to authenticate with the Google Speech API. They suggest creating a credentials provider from your service account JSON file. That's all for that response. Let's see what someone else had to say. An alternative solution provided by another user involves using a credentials file with the Google Speech API. They suggest loading the credentials from a JSON file using an input stream, creating a credentials provider, and then building the text-to-speech settings with that provider. That's the end of that answer. Let's see another perspective. An alternative approach shared by another user involves using a POST request with the audio file encoded in base64. They include the Google API key directly in the request. The user constructs a JSON request with audio content and configuration settings, then sends it to the Google Speech API. If successful, they extract the transcribed text from the response. Here's the pro tip I promised. Always keep your service account key secure and never hard-code it into your applications. This practice will help you maintain security and avoid potential vulnerabilities. And there you have it. You should now be able to specify your Google Speech API credentials with ease. Remember, keeping your credentials secure is just as important as using them correctly. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe for more tips and tricks on working with Google APIs.